Okay, I am still making videos. I just don't post them as nearly as often. I still probably do a video a week at least. But I just it just getting around to doing it, adjusting to the new schedule and all that. Whatever. Excuses come out my butt. This is about charge. I think I've done one or two videos about it, and let me clip it real quick to say that this is a bitching moaning video. I'm tired of being charged. Some places will give you a little bit extra for charge, like I don't know, like 10 cents an hour or something like that. I'm sorry if it's the glare. It's just where I'm parked. Maybe I'll park to the other side next time. But it's a thankless job, in my opinion. You're the boss, but you got none of the benefits being a boss. Like a boss, they at least have regular hours. They don't have to come to work in that sense. They don't. These guys are a different type of boss. They say, I'm used to being a business boss. You got to get in. My father's, it's 2 feet, 3 feet of floodwaters, literally. You still went in. 9/11, I went in. Didn't matter. Day after, I went in. I went in. Some of my workers did too. And I was like, well, you guys didn't have to. I said to them flat out. But I worked on Thanksgiving, so whatever. Didn't matter. I didn't get extra pay. I was a boss. But as nurse now, you're clocking in. You're there, you get paid. You're not there, you don't get paid. That kind of scenario, right? But bosses, managers, they're in salary, so they get that benefit, and it's a double-edged sword. I'm not going to get into that rabbit hole on that. But as charge, that's a nebulous in between, because you are basically the manager of that shift, and everything comes on your head. You have a lot of authority. People don't realize the authority, and it depends on the organization, but typically, because you're going to be responsible, you're given that authority by de facto, because they were charged. So, and that's why I try to explain to the newer charges. I say, look, you make that executive decision, right or wrong. You got to make a decision. You can't just sit and wait. You got to make that decision. And you could get yelled at, or you can get praised, or whatever. That's the whole point of being in charge. I guess they used to call it head nurse. I guess that's all that jokes to that. But charge is being in charge. Well, of course, this is going to relate to a recent shift. I had a horrible shift. It was actually a very good shift for me. Nobody got hurt for me. Nobody, whatever. My patients were fine. They had a good night. And they were all happy. But I was running around like crazy because I was helping everybody else. I had to, and in certain places, you're not going to get an assignment as charge. You're what we call free charge. In my organization, there are certain units that do that, like NICU, ICU, the step down unit, that type of thing. Usually those step down is free, not always, but the ICUs, yeah, they just said, this is people dying left and right. You got to have a free charge to be able to help out, and what we call PRN, is just going to kind of help out everybody as needed. Not for my unit. We have a full assignment. Hell, I mean, when I was in my old pre-renovated unit, you could have 6 or 7 patients easily and still have charge and still do everything. And it was just insane. Thankfully, I was just on the progressive care side, so I only had 4 patients, but they were all, half of them were vented basically. So, it's still the level of difficulty. You have to be right there. And that's difficult because you have your normal work, plus you have this administrative work. Thankfully, my night educator took pity on me. She did some of my audit stuff for me, and that's going to give her a what we call a celebrate, pat on the back, official pat on the back. And it's scenarios like that really test you, because they really test the limits to what we will tolerate as nurses and as people. And I think sometimes I suspect that's just what they're doing, just testing us. It's like, oh, we're going to do this now. What do you guys think? Or, not what do you think, because we're doing it. you know, but you're gonna be tested on making decisions, because pretty much everybody takes their turn as charge. Not always the case. If you're truly incompetent, they will, but you're still a good nurse, they'll be like, no. But 99 times out of 100, everybody's charged, you know. So you're gonna have your turn. And if you're not used to making decisions and taking those lumps and taking that responsibility and helping others, because that's what you could be a bad charge, but that's what I define as being a good charge. Taking that responsibility, being able to make those decisions, and helping others. I was not my patient, I was in a COVID room last night, holding a man's penis, keeping him from bleeding out. 10 minutes, you know, held it. I was like, I'm not sure I'm doing this right. And the nurse is freaking out. She's around. I said, you go do your thing. Go get, you know, we'll call a soft RT or whatever. I'm here. I was like, sir, you shouldn't have pulled your Foley, you know, it was a coup de. He said, I didn't do anything. I was like, well, then if it spontaneously started bleeding like this, you have a much bigger issue on your hands. And he's like, I was like, do. 10 minutes. And to top that off, when the hospitalist came, they just saw the blood in the Foley, which is normal. It's, you know, it's a red wine, you know, not even. It was, you know, and they're like, oh, that's fine. I was like, I was in another room at the time. When I came out, they're like, oh, it was normal and ran off. I was like, not the one in the Foley, the frank blood, and then seeping out through the urethra. It only stopped because I held pressure on it for 10 freaking minutes. Oh my God, I had flashbacks. I had a femoral bleed one time from my patient at that time. It was years ago, and I held it down 15 minutes. My hands were freezing because we had some ice in the area, and it was just, you know, just trying to keep everything cauterized and contracted. He had a cat, well, should not have been on our floor. And when the vascular surgeon finally came, she was like, oh, it's fine, it stopped. I was like, no shit, Sherlock, because I was there for 15 minutes. I had nursing students. I actually had a nursing student with me, and I was like, can you wipe my hand, clean it, and just make sure that's not new blood? And she was like, okay. She was a paramedic, though, so she was used to that. But her professor was behind us. We had semi-private, so in the curtain, saying, oh, we're going to give the Zosyn. I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. She said, okay. And no, I think later on in the report, they were like, yeah, he was trying to stop a femoral bleeding. It's fucking crazy. Actually, the family member actually left because I calmed them down. Well, not calmed them down. I didn't let on that the situation was as dire as it was. And the patient kind of didn't even know. He was like, oh, could I take a walk after this? I was like, no, you're not going to take a walk after this. You have to keep your cool. You have to do multiple things at the same time. And hopefully you do it right. Hopefully you make the right decisions. But there's no guarantee to that. And people, I think a lot of times, the newer charges worry about that. And you have to understand, 30 years of being a manager, being charged for a business, and if I made the wrong decision, I went bankrupt, or I didn't get to eat that night, or something like that, you know, my whole crew didn't eat, 100 people didn't get to eat, you know, because I made the wrong decision. You got to learn to understand that sometimes you're not going to make the right decision. It's going to happen. So, and you just move on. And that's what I say is an executive decision. An executive decision is making a decision, because a lot of people are caught with deer in headlights. Okay? So, good luck on that. If you have any questions, I do field questions. People send me emails, messages, or just comment below and what have you. All right? Good luck.